Welcome to CEO. My name is Michael Yorba. Thanks for joining with us. All right, I have Gore Bolton here with me. He is the CEO of the Group. Did I pronounce that right, or is it DA Group?
It is. It's short for DA Group, Diversified Advantage Group.
Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Give our audience some flavor for the background that you bring to the company, how you started the company, what the company does, and then I have a whole list of questions for you.
Sure. So at the core, our business is about development, capital, and technology. Development comes in a couple of different forms. It comes from the standpoint of true land development, property development, and being on the front end of the entitlement process. We've done projects all over the country. Then it also comes from the standpoint of community development. Where there is development, there are normally community needs. Those needs come in a variety of aspects. So we've actually worked with nonprofits as well as social organizations in the past, so that when we plan projects, we can plan for being able to utilize the workforce that may be not in the path of development. And then, of course, every project needs money. So understanding how to properly capitalize projects is a big focus of ours. And then what we've been able to create out of that is a technology arm that really takes a hard look at how we're going to automate the churn of development in the future.
All right. Trends in real estate development. You've got your finger on the pulse of what's going on. What are you seeing?
Well, right now, of course, everybody's talking about the R word. And so what we try and keep track of is really where the hot spots are overheating. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he was talking about how he gets the alerts of his home price since his last mortgage and all of that. And I said, when things hockey stick, it's normally getting ready to change. Mm-hmm. Of course, the number one indicator in the U.S. is jobs and consumers. So we watch those numbers and aggregate that data on a regular basis. Where there's strong job demand and there's strong consumer spending is normally going to be a pretty good trend. Of course, the state policies have been a big deal with migration and net out and inward migration. We take a look at all those patterns as well.
Right. Private nonprofit businesses, STEM. Walk us through what's going on with those and how you relate to them.
Sure. So one of the things we've seen in our particular industry, especially on the real estate development side, is there's a big vacuum of intellectual property in the industry and know-how from what really was a housing depression 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so there's a whole missing group of people in the middle of that industry that just aren't there to guide and lead the newcomers, and some of them just will never come back. So what we've been doing is we've put a program together to work with nonprofits and agencies to be able to be an entree for workforce viable jobs in STEM that can start out serving the development and construction industry.
For people in the audience don't know what STEM, that acronym.
Sure. Jobs in science, technology, engineering, and math.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Technology is a big part of your business.
It is.
Tell our audience about how it plays with what you do to serve not only the needs of the many, but also the clients that come to you.
Sure. So I was fortunate enough to have an idea that was a little bit ahead of its time. At the time I came up with the idea, the computing power of the cloud, we didn't even have iPhones, so there was no app store to be able to create an app. So I got a patent a couple years ago in geographic information systems and modeling. We've propped up a company called Land Intelligence. That business is out there on a mission to be able to serve the 1 million acres of property in the country that gets developed every year. Mm-hmm. There's about 250 or so thousand projects that start every year. The average project is about 3.5 acres in size. And on average, about 50% of the people that do those projects, they're doing it part-time. And with that gap in historical knowledge of how to do these projects over the last 10 years, those people need a lot of help. So we think the technology can both create jobs as well as save a bunch of efficiency based on that demand in the marketplace.
So it is also a repository of past deals that maybe no longer on the market because people have left the market. Am I getting?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's basically what we call a 5D analysis. It's not only X, Y, and Z where it is, but it's also time and money. So those are the fourth and fifth dimension we add to it so that we have the ability to track money over time and also be able to crowdsource data about information about whether a property is listed for sale or not, whether there might be problems with it or whether there might be good things with it. Because every wise developer I've ever worked with has said they'd rather say no to a good deal than yes to a bad one.
I agree with you. Creating entrepreneurial and abundance is something it's a phrase that you use.
It is.
Bring out the true meaning behind that statement.
Yeah, so for me, it's all about what my grandfather taught me in kindergarten. I used to get off the bus in kindergarten and first grade. I was fortunate enough; my grandfather was retired. He was a retired major, and he taught me to play chess, and he taught me to read the Wall Street Journal. And my father was an entrepreneur. So between my grandfather and my father, being able to create jobs, be able to create something out of nothing, is really, to me, living an abundant life where you're really creating an opportunity for others more than you are yourself most of the time. And then of course, if you do well enough helping other people, you end up doing okay yourself.
Yes. Take care of the service, and the service will take care of you.
Exactly.
Issues that are in common that you see in business these days.
Well, I think everybody talks about the talent, and I think for our rush over the last 10 and 20 years, since the .com 20 years ago, I think a lot of people we've tried to automate people out of jobs, but it seems like the more we automate, the more we realize we need good people. And
right.
So it's kind of funny to watch that trend. I also think that one of the largest trends is the continuity. The new skills that are necessary are advancing at such a fast pace. The tech startups that are handling education, but then also workforce education, what you didn't learn in college, those types of trends I think are great. And the cloud and the internet has been great for that, to be able to plug and play in, especially with smaller companies, to be able to really get some resources that you might not have been able to have before.
So you mentioned the hockey stick earlier. Do you see that the R word people are talking about, I'll say it, the recession may be coming, the economy may be flattening out. Our market is kind of a different market. I mean, when I was here when the last recession hit, and we didn't feel it.
Right.
It hardly hit this
Right.
area. Do you still see that maybe Dallas and Texas as a whole as being one of those rare places that could suffer less if we did have a slowdown in the economy, or do you think it'll be affected right along with everybody else?
Well, certainly all politics are local, right? And so those policies that drive businesses locating somewhere, of course, Texas has I grew up in Virginia, so the competition was always which one was going to be the best for business, Virginia or Texas. So they've always been strong. And what I would say is just when the politicians think of the citizens as their customers, and they really start thinking about the value they have to deliver and the things they need to stay out of their way, one of the worst things you can do to a customer is frustrate them, right?
Right.
And so when you look at it from that standpoint, being able to have the infrastructure in place is a huge competitive advantage for what Texas has going on, specifically in the overall marketplace. The ability to do so much business in a relatively small footprint, in a relatively open area in what we would typically call the triangle of Texas. The other parts of the country, obviously you've got the capital market hubs and the other major 20 markets in the country. Those are where 80% of everybody's moving. So keeping track of those on a regular basis, that's only about 200 or so counties, which is a pretty small percentage of the entire country. That's generally where most commerce is going to go on. I think as long as the lending requirements stay firm, relevant to the risk that companies are willing to take, don't let people get overextended. And then, of course, everybody's still talking about the impending student loan crisis. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know a lot of friends of mine are offering not just relocation assistance, but loan forgiveness. So I think when you look at those things, anytime you have a system where people don't have skin in the game, your risk is out of balance. And so student loans is a good example of that. Housing 0% down is a good example of that. We've got to be careful with those types of programs because that's when things get overheated too fast.
Tell me about the innovative solutions you're working on these days.
Sure. So what we're trying to do is really cut down on wasted time and speed up decision making at the right time. So our technology solutions that we're building in the real estate development is really more of a platform for people that are in the business every day, and then the people that are there part-time that need to come back. So think of it as, a QuickBooks for a small business owner, right? They still have an accountant, they still have a CPA, they're still gonna have their advisors. When you think about those types of platforms, we're basically building that type of a platform for somebody that is searching, selecting, and determining what type of property they wanna buy, invest, or develop moving forward.
Great. Gore, thanks for being a guest today.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. All right, you've been watching CEO Money with Michael Yorba. Thanks for joining with us. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.